Gina, ready na tayo?
Yes, sir. Ready. Good morning.
Okay, so sige na, you can proceed na.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we shall be starting with our webinar today. May I please request everyone to turn off their microphones as we begin with our webinar today.
Gina, unmute mo sarili mo.
Morning, sir. Morning, classmates.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina Oropesa of the Peace Studies Department of Bicol University College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, the facilitator for this webinar. The world is in crisis right now. This pandemic has caused division among states, group of people, and individuals. This division created trauma and conflict. Hence, a process of healing is in order to give way to peace building and conflict transformation. Today, the Bicol University Graduate School, in celebration of its BUGS Days and as part of the activities for the 51st founding anniversary of Bicol University with the theme Burugkos Burunyog sa pag-andurog sa panahon ng pandemya, has invited a distinguished guest to give us a talk on creating healing spaces in this time of pandemic and beyond. A conversation with Reverend Al Fuertes, and we are now live on Zoom and streaming on the official FB page of Bicol University. To start off, we shall have the invocation to be followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
Wait muna ha, kasi I'm trying to share the screen. Okay.
twisted round and round like a carousel ride. Shall we end while we began? Tell me so I'll understand. Let us begin to live this life. Let us together seek its purpose. Life is not a pointless venture. Eternity is for sure. Open up and receive this truth in your heart. That God was smiling at your birth and has a purpose for your life. I know the plans I made for you. Plans for goodness is the Lord. They were made to last forever, and heaven is our home. Let us begin to live this life. Let us together seek its purpose. Life is not a pointless venture. Eternity is for sure. Open up and receive this truth in your heart. That God was smiling at your birth and has a purpose for your life. Let us begin to live this life. Let us together seek its purpose. Life is not a pointless venture. Eternity is for sure. Open up and receive this truth in your heart. That God was smiling at your birth. God was smiling at your birth. To live this life with purpose, a purpose, dream and
mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
isipan na riyan ang trilay. Nung matuto marunong mag-ingay, sa isubok pinatipinan. Dahil saan yan, pinarati tayo mapalay. Ako, ikaw, tayo, kahit sino pa, bantay-bantay ang tingin sa isa't isa. Isang pangarap, isang hangarin, tayo ay tatayuin nyo. Sumayaw tayo, iwan nyo, sama-sama tayo. Ingat, ganda, taglay ng ating mga puso, walang susuko. Kahit anong problema, wala lang yung sa tinaasang isilang. Isang kaya na laging isipin na tayo'y tatapin pwedyo. Ngunit kahit di makita ilas sa kapag mga malaki sa daan, parang hindi malagpasan. Tumingala, sumituloy na karunungan pag sinabing liwan yun hindi ito urugan. Hindi kasi tinatay, ilabas mo sa baon, ang ipagpinigay sa tinagkasama. Kumbaga, iba ka sa kanila kung di ka tiniwa ka tuwing nakikita. Mga talento natin ay iba-iba. Sa pamumuno tayo'y nagiging isa. Sa servisyo, di nagsusukuan. Kahit di na kaya, ay kakayanin pa. Ngayon, sasayaw tayo, iwan nyo, sama-sama tayo. Tunay na gaganda ang talay ng ating mga puso, walang susuko. Kahit anong problema, wala lang yan, basta tinaasang isilang. Pasok na yan at laging isipin na tayo'y tatayo. Sasayaw tayo, iwan nyo, sama-sama tayo. Kahit anong problema, wala lang yan, basta tinaasang isilang. Pasok na yan at laging isipin na tayo'y tatapiwan nyo. Tatapiwan nyo. Laging isipin na tayo'y tatapiwan nyo.
Sorry, I lost connection. So to continue, allow me first to read to you the house rules for this webinar. First, please practice basic online etiquette. That includes turning off your camera and microphone. Second, questions and clarification will be entertained during the open forum, and you may turn on your microphone for asking questions or you may use the chat box or comment section box. The third, treat everyone how you would like to be treated. Be an active participant. And lastly, have fun and keep an open mind. To give us open remarks, let me call Dr. Herbert Rosana, the OIC Dean of the BU Graduate School. Dr. Bert.
Okay, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and happy Sunday to everyone. For Dr. Alfortes, our speaker for today, it is good evening as it is still Saturday for him as he lives halfway across the world from Fairfax, Virginia, USA, from George Mason University to be specific. To our university president, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, and to the four vice presidents that assists him, to the deans and directors of colleges and institutes hosting the graduate programs, and to our faculty members teaching graduate courses, to the officers of the graduate school, student council, to the students of the graduate school, to the members of the panel reactors, to our very own Dr. Dali Lagilles of the sociology department, and Mr. Alan Venus, the president of the student council, and Dr. Dudy Sinieres, the sponsor of this program. This is sponsored by the PASA program, but he is the president of the class. And I would like to begin this day with a quote from Albert Camus, a Nobel Peace Prize winning philosopher, where he says, and I quote, "In the depths of winter, I finally learned that there was in me an invincible summer." A very apt description of what we are undergoing today in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. And in the depths of this crisis, we realize that within us there is that energy that heals and empathizes, that fear has no power to extinguish our magnificent gift as humans, and the power of our spirits to empathize with every suffering souls as we too endure our own suffering. Indeed, these are very stressful times, and we need to create spaces to heal and to reintegrate. That is why today we have invited a dynamic and down-to-earth resource person who will talk with us about creating healing spaces. And we hope that with his message and teachings, we can get insights that will help us sustain life and make it more meaningful each day. So to each and everyone, and especially those who are watching us through Facebook and live streaming, I know that some have indicated that they will watch through the Facebook Live because it's easier for them to connect rather than with the Zoom meeting rooms. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rosana, for the welcome remarks. Now, to give us inspirational message, we have attorney Alex Bini Pomuceno, PhD, the program advisor of the MAPS and PASA, and the dean of the BUCSSP, Dr. Attorney Alex Bini Pomuceno.
Thank you, Madam Gina. To our respected and beloved President of Bicol University, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, to the University Vice Presidents, Dr. Amelia Dorosan, our Vice President for Academic Affairs, the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Dr. Attorney Joseph Bartolata, the Vice President for Research, Development, Extension, Dr. Luis Amano, and the Vice President for Planning and Development, Professor Jerry Bigornia. To our very promising, dynamic, and very able OIC Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Herbert Rosana, to our guest speaker, Reverend Al Fuertes, and guest discussants, of course, with special mention to Dr. Dali Lagilles, a God champion and one of the pioneer faculty of Peace Program, the academic deans and directors, heads of offices, graduate school coordinators, and faculty members, the Graduate School Student Council, headed by President Alan Venus, our dear graduate students, with a special mention to the sponsor, organizer, and facilitator of today's activity, the PhD Peace and Security Administration Program under the leadership of President Dr. Godofredo Dodi Senires. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. The Bicol University turns 51 this month, a grace from God that we all celebrate with great gratitude and unwavering commitment to service, with full optimism, dynamism, and unfaltering hope and proactive plans for a well-focused and steady pursuit of its vision of becoming a world-class university. This articulation likewise characterized all the colleges and units of Bicol University, particularly Bicol University Graduate School, and if I were not mistaken, is on its road toward celebration of Golden Age. Bicol University is of my age, and I am just 4 days senior. Hence, I can capture the feel of what it is to be on the first year after the Golden Age. As such, I should also radiate, unleash, and exemplify what it takes to be at age 51. However, ideally, empirically, or otherwise, it doesn't take to be 51 in order to align enthusiastically, vibrantly, and seriously with Bicol University's quest for genuine service at its finest. All it takes is to be truthful and dedicated to one's commitment to leadership and service, which to me is not grandeur, power, and honor, but the mandate of fulfilling the duties and responsibilities to God, country, and the university. The Bicol University Graduate School is not far and detached from this pursuit and initiatives and struggles of Bicol University. Because like other colleges and academic units, the graduate school now, under the able leadership of Dr. Herbert Cusana, has steadily demonstrated unconditional commitment and unquestionable excellent performance for advanced education, as evidenced by the number of its awards received, program offerings, engagement in research undertakings, and various extension programs, and above all, the academic men and women across units and programs with excellent credentials, lofty ideals and aspirations, and actual excellent engagements that are all dedicated to unselfish and heroic public service. Moreover, like all institutions, organizations, schools, and clubs, Bicol University celebrates its anniversary this year amidst health crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, which actually pushed the whole world, its systems, structures, and arrangements to the brink of collapse. Yet, there is God, loving, merciful, and providential, that holds and sustains the world, his masterpiece of creation from total collapse. Hence, we are now on the road to recovery and rehabilitation. We can already see the silver linings and the beauty of the dawn. Yes, COVID-19 ushered a lot of positive things. We were put back to our knees to firm up our faith in God. We were given time to pause and take a rest from the humdrum of life's struggle for advancement. We were redirected to travel back home to physically stay with our loved ones, that's literally, and many more. But above all, to stop us play like God abusively by touching the tree of knowledge and the tree of life against the will and teachings of God. These are few examples of the good things unfolded by pandemic. And to add some, like plantdemic, which help rehabilitate the Mother Earth. Yung may mga plantito, plantita dyan. And the webinar-demic, which help us pull together in virtual gatherings for sharing, development, proliferation, dissemination, and exemplification of our intellectual and rational prowess and contributions to societal development and transformation. And to top it all, the pandemic helped us feel and locate once again the soft spot in our hearts for love, compassion, empathy, and kindness, which, through heroic deeds of dedicating life to the sworn duty and oath of profession, like the medical, health, and the rest of the frontliners. The Good Samaritans' unconditional, non-partisan, and instant readiness to help the needy, which in Filipino version is bayanihan, were the instruments and graces that help us survive and to continuously rise above the pandemic. Truly, we are champion of creating healing spaces amidst and beyond the onset of this pandemic. Hence, Bicol University conceptualized and officially launched a social action program for financial help towards academic development of the students, the Tabang sa Pag-adal program, which is a whole university and society approach in organizing all efforts, sectors, and segments into a holistic program for synergy and collaboration in order to intensify fundraising activities, drives, and calls for the assistance of the less fortunate, the disadvantaged, and less privileged BUenos, our beloved BU scholars, ranging from cash and in-kind donations for online learning such as, but not limited to laptop, Android phones, prepaid cards, flexible related services for learning materials, transportation of the same, and opening of Learning Mobility Center for dropping or receiving and forwarding learning materials in remote places without internet connectivity. And of course, reproduction or Xeroxing centers and they adopt a BioSco for financial support of at least one semester as an academic benefactor or foster parent. All of the aspects and details of the program are now being cross-checked and policed in reference and compliance with existing laws, rules, and regulations for a social action and charitable program as officially launched by Bicol University, which is a state university. Having said all this, I would like, therefore, to close my inspirational message by sincerely knocking in your heart for support to this kind of healing space program of Bicol University that is beyond physical or spatial arrangement or beyond architecture and engineering design. The program being a social charitable program at Burugos, Burunyog sa pag-andurog sa panahon ng pandemya. Indeed, Bicol University cares. To all of you, thank you and good morning. Mabuhay ang mga mag-aaral ng pamantasan ng Bicol. Congratulations, Bicol University Graduate School, and happy 51st founding anniversary, Bicol University. Have a happy and blessed Sunday to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Alex D. Nepomuceno, for the encouraging and meaningful message. Truly, we can stand this health crisis by keeping our faith to God. No difficulties or challenges can put us down because Filipinos are one of the world's most resilient. The academic institutions such as Bicol University will rise above these challenges, especially with the help of our stakeholders through the Tabang sa Pag-aaral. Thank you. So I will now be calling again Dr. Herbert B. Rosana for the introduction of our distinguished guest speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you a, a dynamic person and a field practitioner and consultant in peace and conflict resolution. Al is a field practitioner and consultant who specializes in community-based trauma healing as an integral component in peace building and conflict transformation. He travels extensively around the world, particularly in places affected by war, armed conflict, and natural disaster. He works with government, religious, military, and community leaders, as well as NGO development workers, school administrators, teachers, youth, refugees, and internally displaced person. He is the faculty director of the Global Education Program in the Philippines, a 6-credit unit summer course in human trafficking, environmental issues, and grassroots peace building, and the Cambodia program, a 3-credit winter course in post-genocide, community development, and spirituality, including the one in Rwanda, another 3-credit winter course in genocide, healing, and reconciliation. And all programs are through the Mason's Global Education Office. Al is an ordained minister with the United Church of Christ in the Philippines, and he currently works as a covenant minister of the UCC Wellspring in Centerville, Virginia. And also, Al also has his educational background includes um, having a PhD in conflict analysis and resolution from George Mason University in 2007. And he also earned a Master of Arts in Peace Studies associated from the Associated Mennonite Biblical Seminary in Eckhart, Indiana, in 1997. And he also holds a bachelor's degree in theology from the Silliman University in Dumaguete from the Philippines. So aside from that, Reverend Al is also teaching methodologies on forgiveness and reconciliation, voluntary repatriation of Karen refugees to Burma, prosecution and conviction of human trafficking cases in the Philippines, peace building in Sri Lanka post-conflict. And aside from that, he also authored several books and like for example, he authored books like Peace Builders in Mindanao, Describe Consciousness and Transformation Towards Effective Practice, and he also authored other books, like for example, um, Peace Builders in Southeast Asia, describe the dynamic interplay between consciousness and transformation towards effective practice. And aside from that, there are also a long list of publications which you can access from the Google. If you are interested to know the works of Reverend Al Fortes, you can look at the Google, search the Google, and you will find a list of his books and articles that he has written. So currently, Reverend Al is in the United States. So sa atin ngayon, good morning sa kanya, good evening. And I thank him for accepting our invitation despite of the fact that it is almost bedtime and he's willing to share with us his expertise on trauma healing and conflict resolution. So without much ado, let me give the floor now to our resource person, Professor Al Fertes. You can unmute yourself. You can. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Kumusta? Kumusta?
Good morning.
I'm so happy and privileged to be part of your celebration. And congratulations, dear Bicol University, on this your founding anniversary. And Dr. Herbert, Rosanna, thank you so much for the invite. I'm very much looking forward to be part of this webinar, particularly in sharing with you my thoughts based on my teaching and practice. I'm also an associate professor here at George Mason University on the topic creating healing spaces in this time of pandemic and beyond. And the inspirational message somehow encapsulates, the need for us to really have not just this conversation on what healing means to us, but also to highlight our resilience in terms of what sustains us, what keeps us going, as an academic institution, as an academic community, as individuals as well, faculty, staff, um, professionals representing different fields of discipline, graduate students, and so I have prepared a set of PowerPoint here, and please feel free to take a snapshot, of any of the slides here for future reference. When Dr. Herbert Rosanna mentioned to me about the theme, creating healing spaces in this time of pandemic, I could not help but also take into consideration the need for us to understand, in the first place, why do we need to create healing spaces? Okay, and of course, the context is the COVID-19 pandemic. But then the further question is, how does this COVID-19 pandemic impact or affect us? On the individual level, on the family level, community level, national level, and even global perspective. So, how would you respond if someone asks you this question? How have you been so far since the COVID-19 pandemic began? Your studies, your work, your family. And this is just a rhetorical question for now, okay? But something for us to start thinking about, to start reflecting on. How have you been so far since the COVID-19 pandemic began? Because I remember in March 10, I actually went to Manila, but only for 3 days, or March 11, only for 3 days. I had to fly back to Washington, D.C., before the Manila lockdown. And so that was the shortest visit I ever had, to the Philippines. And I think it was in March or in April, where the peak, where everybody, really started to realize the depth and the breadth of this COVID-19 pandemic. And nobody is exempted in terms of having to feel all the stresses and anxieties. And I would like to believe that this is something that resonates well with most of us, if not every one of us. Okay, so I hope you're able to see what's on the screen here. And perhaps some of you may have actually seen this online, but I have kind of modified this, and as we move and as we delve deeper into the meat of our theme, and that is creating healing spaces, at this point, may I also invite each one of us to see for ourselves, where are you now in the spectrum of the COVID-19? I added the denial zone and also the action zone, okay? Since the COVID-19 pandemic began until this very moment, where would you locate yourself? Are you still on the fear zone? In other words, does fear still control you? Or have you already moved on to the learning zone? Or maybe to the growth zone? Or maybe to the action zone? Or maybe you have been ping-ponging back and forth here, okay? And I also include the denial zone because, for example, here in the United States, we are, I think, one of the worst countries nowadays in terms of the COVID-19 cases. and the death toll has now reached more than 200,000. And it is really a sad truth. And still many of us here think that this COVID-19 is a hoax. Can you imagine that? Even in the face of tens and thousands of people dying, and in, I don't know how many hundreds, more than a couple million Americans have been infected with this coronavirus, and still many think that this is a hoax. And so I included that in the denial zone. Okay. Are we still in the fear zone at this point? Yes, we may be on the growth zone already, and we still have fear, but we know that fear no longer controls us, unlike before, for example. So something for us to think about. And some of these identifiers here may apply to you, while others may not. And I also encourage us to add your own input to this. Okay, fear zone, for example, still always complaining almost every day, and then still having this urge to panic buy, and whatever messages are being forwarded to us, we right away also forward it to others, and things like that. And the learning zone is we are beginning to really kind of realize, and acknowledge the reality of this COVID-19 pandemic. And part of learning zone is also acknowledging how we may have been impacted by this. Part of the learning zone is already, thinking and realizing how we could perhaps manage our daily routines given this new normal. And of course, the growth zone here is thinking how we might continue to actually develop as human beings, even in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. Also, part of the growth zone is really trying to make sense of our present, the here and now, and then how to sustain our sense of balance, our sense of well-being, our sense of safety and security. And then the action zone here is even in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, I know that some of us may have already continued their work in the community, extending service for others. Many of us have rediscovered, if not discovered, their entrepreneurial skills, for example. Many of us, even in the midst of this pandemic, continued to empower local communities, or maybe taking care of Mother Nature for that matter. But then there is still that fear, okay? But again, like what I've said earlier, we know that this fear no longer controls us. So where are you in this COVID-19 spectrum? Okay. And the reason why I asked that question is because part of our ongoing conversation here, especially within the context of the process of creating healing spaces, is very much based on this stress and trauma. Okay. Let me know if there is anyone among you who has never been stressed out by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I would really love to talk to you. Stress is normal, okay? In fact, sometimes we need a dosage of stress to become more productive. However, if stress overwhelms us, and if the manifestations of stress persist for more than 30 days, that's according to clinical studies, by then perhaps we no longer experience stress. Maybe our stress has now become a trauma, okay? And even during this COVID-19 pandemic, okay, my question at this point is, how do you know that you have been stressed out by this pandemic? What are the manifestations? What are the indicators of stress? Let's just focus on ourselves here, okay? And have there been manifestations of stress within you which started last February or in March, and then until today, those manifestations persist? This is part of the context by which we will delve deeper into the meat of our theme, okay? And then trauma here is basically prolonged stress, persistent manifestations of stress lasting more than 30 days. And perhaps some of us may ask the question, but then how do we define trauma in the first place? I would like to share with us three major perspectives whenever we talk about trauma. And let's talk about trauma from a lay person's perspective. Okay, trauma. One major perspective of trauma refers to an event or events that leave us with lifelong problems. So that is one perspective. The other perspective is of trauma is the effects or the impacts of such an event on our lives, on our community or society. And then the third major perspective is the experience, how we are experiencing such impacts or effects of such an event like the COVID-19 pandemic on our lives. So let us remind ourselves of these three major perspectives and see if these perspectives indeed apply to this COVID-19 pandemic conversation that we are having right now. Okay, so this is just a simple, clear distinction that I'm making between stress and trauma. Okay, like what I have said earlier, stress is normal. But if the manifestations of stress persist for more than 30 days, perhaps our stress has become a form of traumatization. Okay, if we notice, and I think our colleague, who gave us, the messages earlier, alluded to the fact that this COVID-19 pandemic actually impacts us on on so many different levels. Okay. Sometimes we just tend to focus on the personal or individual aspect in terms of how we may have been affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. But then we realize that even our families have also been impacted by this. And then we further realize that the local community where we are a part of is also actually suffering from this COVID-19 pandemic, and not just local communities, but the entire country. And then it is actually a global public health crisis. But then what complicates further this COVID-19 pandemic is that its effect, it's not just on different levels. This pandemic also impacts us on so many different facets or aspects of life. Perhaps at first we might have thought, we are just being affected mentally. That's why we are emphasizing, you must have heard of this term, mental health, mental well-being during this pandemic. We may have thought perhaps at first that this COVID-19 pandemic impacts us emotionally and psychologically. That's true. But the fact is, we are also impacted economically. How many of our loved ones or people that you know may have been furloughed because of this pandemic, or may have lost their job, and that results to unemployment, and that means less income, if not no income at all. How many families are filing for bankruptcy or closing down their businesses for good because of the COVID-19 pandemic? And then how many families, the relationship is also to some extent being impacted by this pandemic? Think of those families that are grieving because of the death of a loved one due to COVID-19, and they could not even be there for each other, to support each other, to extend a physical presence, because we as human beings, we are wired, to be physically present for others. That's just part of who we are. But somehow this COVID-19 pandemic, limits us. In fact, does not allow us to be there for our loved ones who are grieving. And so this actually adds another layer to the whole grieving process. Some families I know, their grieving process may have been aborted or may have been postponed. And can you imagine, being unable to grieve? And grieving is part of a healing process, whether we are talking about human beings or we are talking about community, grieving. And then this COVID-19 pandemic, as we know, to some extent, also has some political implications. Here in the United States, for example, this pandemic really has brought out, has exposed, the economic inequalities. It has exposed to the ugliness of racism, for example. I'm sure you have heard of all the movement against racism, the Black Lives Matter, movement, for example. I just want to put things in perspective here, that this COVID-19 pandemic impacts us on so many levels, and at the same time, it also impacts us on so many aspects or facets of life. And I would also like to add maybe spiritually as well. How many of us may have really started to doubt the foundation of the faith because of this? I have some colleagues in the Philippines who now asking questions like, is God still really in control of the situation? Or God, where were you when my father was infected with this COVID-19 pandemic? Where were you when we were suffering from this? Where were you when we lost our job? And then the education of our children, for example, this has become one of the most contentious issues nowadays. Some children are able to continue with their schooling online because they have resources. Others, they have to postpone perhaps or let go because they just couldn't afford, no money to even pay for the internet connection and what have you. And then of course the healthcare system of the country as well. Okay. So in other words, it is a multifaceted, multi-layered, implications that this COVID-19 pandemic has brought to all of us. And right now, I would like to ask the question, so if these are just, some of the representations of COVID-19 pandemic's impact on us, what does healing mean? And what does the process of creating healing spaces imply? For example, in this context, and by the way, feel free to type in your response on our chat room. What would you like to add? What other concepts or images remind you of this COVID-19 pandemic? Just to bring home further the message. Because like what I've said earlier, this is the context by which we will try to really explore and understand further, the essence of healing spaces. What other concepts or images come to mind when you hear of the word COVID-19? In addition to this.
Sir, can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Yes,
I'm
good morning.
Colonel Martinez, sir.
Yes,
Can
Colonel.
you just define to us what do you mean by healing spaces?
Yeah, we haven't come to that point yet, Colonel, but we will. We are still in the context. We are still in the context of the COVID-19 by which we will explore and understand what we mean by healing spaces.
Yes, sir. I'm interested in the 30 days that you mentioned.
Can the 30 days.
Later?
The 30 days, that's from a clinical studies when stress manifests.
Okay, sir.
Okay. For example, how we may have been affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, having all these flashback and nightmares and, rapid heartbeat or palpitation, and then showing some psychosomatic, bodily responses. And sometimes we may think that these are medical, but actually those are just stress.
Yes, sir.
Stress is normal. But then if the manifestations of stress in your body, in your being, prolonged or persist for more than 30 days, then that is an indication that perhaps the stress has become a trauma. Okay. And I think it's very important for us to have a word to assign to what we may be going through during this COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, Colonel. We will explore later on, or soon, what we mean by healing spaces. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So if you notice, this basically resonates with what I have just presented earlier. Whenever we talk about COVID-19 pandemic, we are right away reminded of trigger feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, uncertainty, decreased job security. So you could just imagine living a life insecure, with a big question mark. How can I continue providing food for my family? How can I continue providing money to send my children to school and to buy all the necessities in life every day for my family? This COVID-19 pandemic has also promoted social withdrawal, not just naturally, but we are forced. It is a fact. We are forced to limit our mobility because it is a mandate. The quarantine, we have to stay within our household. This also exacerbated, feelings of loneliness, financial insecurity, always having this fear for loved ones' lives, and then increased anxiety, and many others. That's why part of my presentation is really for us to be able to identify how have we been impacted by this COVID-19 pandemic. Let me say, okay, fear has got to do with stress. Yes, that's really true. Okay. And we are reminded that there's an open forum that follows later on. Okay, so again, this is just part of the context by which I would like for us to think about. And here, I hope you're able to see this material. These are actually manifestations of stress and or trauma. And these were based on personal narratives, personal stories of individuals who have gone through some very stressful experience. And these were being compiled by my colleagues at Eastern Mennonite University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And if we notice, stress actually manifests in so many different forms and phases. Each one of us responds to stress differently. Okay, so emotionally, we may have been impacted by this, having all this constant fear and feeling terrorized, anxious every day, paranoid, or maybe anger, feeling angry every day, not knowing why. And I would like to emphasize here, anger is a normal feeling. Anger is what we see on the surface. It is a feeling signal that something isn't right, that something needs fixing. However, we need to understand what is underlying anger. Are you angry because you feel unsafe? Are you angry because you feel so insecure? Are you angry because you feel so anxious about your safety and the safety of your loved ones? Are you angry because you lost your job? Are you angry because you are actually grieving inside and somehow you could not let go? You don't have any outlet by which to express your grief. And then I know of many individuals and even family members who are experiencing depression due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so on and so forth. And then cognitive, confused, having nightmares. Nightmares, these are, bad dreams. In the middle of the night, you just kind of wake up and yell because something came up in your mind, or feeling hypervigilant all the time. This is part of related to paranoid, as if there is something that's going to happen and you don't know what that is and when that will happen. And so you just have to be hyper alert. Can you imagine living a life always hyper vigilant? Or maybe having flashbacks in the middle of the day, in the middle of your work, for example, all of a sudden something pops up in your mind. It's very intrusive because that's something you don't have control over. Or maybe difficulty making decisions. How many of us really experience this. We could not focus, we could not concentrate because of this fear brought about by the pandemic, because of the stress, because of the anxiety, that no matter how much we tried to focus on our work, we just couldn't. And then by the end of the day, we end up feeling like we are not really productive and progressing at all. Maybe having difficulty even making decisions. And then behavioral, okay? How many of us have started to be withdrawn, not because there is a mandate to quarantine or to lock ourselves down, but it is just how our body responds. Or maybe we start to overwork as a way to distract ourselves from our own anxiety and stress and fear and what have you. But then it does not really address our felt reality, or the inability to rest or sleep and what have you. And then physically, of course, no? Sometimes we might think this is medical, but actually maybe it's just related to stress or anxiety. How many of us have felt, feeling discomfort on our chest? Sometimes it could just be a form of grief waiting to be let go, waiting to be expressed. How many of us were feeling chest pain? Because anxiety manifests in that manner as well, experiencing high blood pressure, rapid heart rate, or muscle tremors and what have you. And then, of course, spiritual aspect. I know of many Filipino friends and colleagues who felt a sense of emptiness, because the things they used to do before, the things they love doing before, are no longer there, as if these are being taken away from them without the permission. Not to mention having known someone, who may have died due to the coronavirus. And so that creates a sense of chasm, a sense of emptiness, a void. And somehow people are struggling how to fill in that void, how to fill in, what to fill in the emptiness, And then, of course, societal effects. So these are just some of the manifestations or indicators of stress. And I have asked this question earlier. How do you know that you are being stressed out by this COVID-19 pandemic? A very crucial question that we need to really address for ourselves. Okay. Yes, and we have comments here. Psychological stress always has a backlash on the physical health, on the mind, on our emotion, because these are all very much interrelated. Whatever happens to one aspect of our being impacts our sense of wholeness and wellness. And then, of course, family level. And please add your input here. Pandemic exposes class disparities and inequality among the haves and the have-nots. We always hear this statement, we are all in this together. Yes, maybe we are all in the same storm, but we are in different boats. Some families have all the resources they need to continue living their lives during this pandemic, while other families literally have nothing. And then on the family level, members of the family could not be there for each other in person to extend support and comfort. So you could just imagine how this exacerbates, the degree of stress and anxiety. And then for members of our family who have lost resources, who are being furloughed, lockdown and quarantine means can't work, no income. And then death of a relative or loved one due to coronavirus complicates the grieving process. How many families that are being evicted from their rented place because they could not pay the monthly rentals and bills? How many families that are experiencing or suffering from even depression? You could just imagine, people having mental issues before the pandemic and how this pandemic really has worsened that situation. And I hope you have also heard and read, news in the Philippines in terms of how much this COVID-19 pandemic really has exacerbated. There's a dramatic increase of domestic abuse and domestic violence due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Because the victims and survivors and the perpetrators, the abusers, are now forced to live together under the same roof because we have this mandate, quarantine or lockdown. So where will they go? Just something for us to think about and really to see for ourselves just how important your theme is. And that is creating healing spaces, in this time of a pandemic. And then this pandemic also exacerbated interpersonal conflict and tension within families. Anger, frustration, disappointments, fears are now getting displaced. We don't know how to process them. We don't have proper constructive outlets. And so sometimes members of our family, our very own loved ones, become the object of our anger, the object of our desperation, our frustration. Families filing for bankruptcy. There is an increase of families disintegrating and separating. Children's education is being suspended, and so on and so forth. These are just, glimpses of how this pandemic also impacted not just the individuals, but also our respective families. And then, of course, and we don't have to go over this, on the national level and global perspective, okay? The healthcare system, economic, social aspect, environmental, and including political aspect, okay? So I just would like for us I'm just trying to provide us with this kind of a broader context, by which to understand the intensity of this COVID-19 pandemic. And I would like to pass and skip this because we're just reminded that there is a question and answer portion later on. Okay, so if you have questions or points of clarification at this point, or maybe comments or additional insights, please jot them down for now. Okay, just to make sure that you won't forget them. Okay, so now here is my question. In light of what has been presented, what does creating healing spaces mean in the face of COVID-19 pandemic's multi-layered and multifaceted impacts? And what does the process comprise of? In fact, not just creating healing spaces, but what does healing mean for us? I think each one of us must really define it for ourselves. I cannot impose on you what healing is and should be, because what works for me might not necessarily work for you. What healing means to me might not necessarily be your concept, your understanding of healing, depending on how you are experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic. What does healing mean for our families that until today are experiencing the brunt of this COVID-19 pandemic? I would like to invite you to please spend a moment to read these couple paragraphs. In situations where communities are experiencing turmoil and confusion, and the people are simply overwhelmed by what they go through, such as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and its far-reaching consequences and implications, creating healing spaces evokes not only a sense of cohesion of the mind, body, and spirit. I'm basically talking about here the integration, a sense of wholeness, among those affected, but rather it also supports healing intentions, our plans, what we want to do, our commitment, our resolves that would help foster healing relationship toward restoration into wholeness. Because the material that I just shared with us earlier actually reflect what I call fragmentation. There are different forms of fragmentation that are unfolding on ourselves, on our families, on our community, even on the entire country due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And so creating healing spaces implies not only the integration of mind, body, and spirit on the individual level, but it also has to do with becoming more intentional in taking into consideration mechanisms and ways that would bring about healing, including the mending of relationships that may have been impacted by this pandemic. And the process of creating healing spaces highlights the dimensions of a healing environment: physical, social, natural, even interior. It also calls for the unpacking of the multi-layered and multifaceted nature of healing. In other words, let's not just talk about, or let's not just lump our conversation into one term, and that is COVID-19 pandemic impacts us. But we really need to unravel, unpack. It's like, slicing a bulb onion, and there are so many layers around that. Okay. Um, because sometimes we might just end up addressing the symptoms and not necessarily the triggers or the root causes. Okay. So creating healing spaces also includes confronting our own challenges and limitations instead of brushing it off, instead of still pretending like, oh, we are strong, when we know that deep inside we are actually feeling a sense of aloneness, a sense of helplessness, and just a big question mark: when will this end? And so we envision ideal healing spaces, both physical and symbolic, that reflect our felt realities. That's why we started this presentation with glimpses of the implications and the consequences of this COVID-19 pandemic. Because I don't want us to talk about healing and attempt to create healing spaces that is based on fantasy. Okay? I want our discourse, our conversation and practice of healing and establishing, healing spaces that is grounded on our felt reality. And if you ask me, so what are some of the dimensions of healing spaces? This would be my response. Healing spaces are also multi-dimensional. And this applies not only for individuals actually, but even for our families and for our community, even for academic institutions, academic communities. During this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to also nurture our emotional intelligence, not just, or emotional quotient or EQ. In addition to nurturing and maintaining our intellectual capacity and capability. And this webinar that your university graduate school is spearheading is one way by which we are able to continue to stimulate our minds, because we need that, to raise questions, to be introduced and exposed to the ugliness of what this COVID-19 pandemic is bringing to us. And of course, we also know that there are still good things that also come out from this COVID-19 pandemic, but that will be part of our closing material here. And then physical as well, physical wellness, how we live out our bodies, our physical selves every day is also one of the dimensions of these healing spaces. Social, despite lockdowns, despite quarantines, are we still able to nurture and expand our social interactions, our relationships with others, including our relationship with nature, with God's created nature, which actually brings us to the next dimension, and that is environmental. In the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, are we taking care? Do we continue to take care our personal, of course, financial, how we appropriate our resources given its limitations? And then, of course, the spiritual aspect of it. Okay? Something that gives us meaning, something that sustains our finding this purpose to live. Okay, one of my favorite authors, Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl is the father of logotherapy. And he said that what killed thousands, and he was a survivor during the Holocaust, you know, and he said that what killed thousands of prisoners in different concentration camps during the Holocaust was not necessarily because of famine or the bitter cold of winter or hard labor or hunger or separation from their loved ones. Of course, these were compounding factors. But Viktor Frankl said what killed thousands of them inside different concentration camps was when they let go of their meaning and the purpose of their life and existence. Viktor Frankl said that is fatal. And that is most devastating. In fact, this is one of the questions I would like to ask each and every one of us at this point. You know, what sustains you in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic? And even beyond this pandemic, even before this pandemic, what keeps you going? There's got to be something. There's got to be something somewhere within yourself that keeps you going. And I'm not sure if we are aware of it. And so this is our time to bring into our consciousness things that we may not have thought of before, but they are actually helping us, you know, sustain ourselves, even in the midst of human pain and suffering and challenges. Okay, so healing spaces are multi-dimensional. It calls for a comprehensive, holistic approach. And then, specifically, these are also some of the recommendations by the people who have experienced stress and trauma and what helped them, what sustained them. Okay, so if you recall, the other handout that is similar to this talks about manifestations of stress and trauma. This one highlights what we can do to take care of ourselves. We can focus on ourselves for now, you know, and our families. So emotional aspect, how can we nurture our emotional well-being? How can we nurture our cognitive, our thinking being in light of what we may have been experiencing or are experiencing because of this COVID-19 pandemic? How can we nurture our behavioral aspect, our behavioral being, the doing aspect of our being, and then the physical aspect, and also spiritual, including societal interactions and involvement. And then, of course, you can add your input. I would like to believe the fact that you are still here until this very moment suggests that there's got to be something. Call it resilience. But what are the sources of our resilience? I just want us to really be more intentional in naming these one by one. What about the issue of spirituality, for example? How has your spirituality sustained you during this COVID-19 pandemic? I'm not necessarily talking about religion. I'm talking about your spirituality. How has your spirituality sustained you in this time of pandemic? So, and we are now moving towards the last part of my presentation. Earlier, I have presented to you the dimensions of healing spaces. So now, let's explore these characteristics of healing spaces. And I adapted this from Judith Herman's Trauma Recovery. Whenever we talk about healing spaces, one characteristic is, of course, the reestablishment of healing relationship. That is foremost. Because the bottom line is that, and the fact is, this pandemic disempowers us. Disempowers the fact that we somehow lost our sense of control over the things that we used to do before. This COVID-19 pandemic disconnects us from ourselves and from others. We just have to face it. We just have to acknowledge it. And healing and recovery within the context of this COVID-19 pandemic can take place only within the context of relationships. They cannot occur in isolation because healing is a social process. No matter how introverted you may feel about yourself, when it comes to healing and recovery, you will always seek someone to talk to turn to cry on, to lean on, to be with. And so we need to reestablish, if not establish, a healing relationship. And then the second characteristic that I would like to highlight whenever we talk about healing spaces is the establishment of safety. And part of establishing safety, because this COVID-19 pandemic makes us feel unsafe and insecure. It is a fact. And so naming this public health crisis and its impact on us, like what we are doing right now, is one way of establishing safety. First, we have to acknowledge and remind ourselves of what this COVID-19 pandemic has brought to us. And then restoring control. While we may feel like, everything is being taken away from us, but I just would like to remind us that there are still things that are actually within our reach. There are still things that are still within our control. The passion to do this, the commitment to do that, that could stay. It is just perhaps the manner by which we express this that changes. And then, of course, establishing a safe environment. Some of this may not necessarily happen at this point, no? But in fact, this is my question to each and every one of us. Is safety possible? Establishing safety, is it possible in the face of an ongoing COVID-19 pandemic? Can we establish a safe environment even in this ongoing pandemic? Can we continue? Can we mobilize caring people? Can we develop a plan for future protection even in this ongoing pandemic? And then the third characteristic is remembrance and mourning, expressing our grief. It is very difficult to move on if we are unable to express our grief over things that were taken away from us, more so over people we know, loved ones who may have died due to this COVID-19. And so this is part of our task, part of our challenge. How do we integrate acts of commemoration, acts of remembering, and then part of that is mourning, expressing our grief as we create healing spaces? How do we reconstruct our story, our narratives of COVID-19 pandemic? Because the fact is, we could no longer live in the sources of pain and anguish among many, because they still continue holding on to that kind of reality they once had before the pandemic, when the fact is we are now living in a new normal. This is now our new reality. We could no longer live in the world of if only, what if, because it will just create cognitive dissonance within ourselves. But how do we enable and empower people to acknowledge and start admitting and embracing our new normal? How do we reconstruct our story in the presence of this COVID-19 pandemic? The other challenge is, how do we transform stressful and traumatic memories brought about by this pandemic into opportunities, using this pandemic as a catalyst for change or transformation? And then, of course, finding and giving ourselves the permission to mourn. No? By the way, mourning or mourn is the outward manifestation or expression of grief. Grief is universal, regardless of your cultural context or background. We all experience grief when something is gone, when a loved one is no longer there. But how we express grief, that is cultural, that is contextual, because we express grief in many ways. So part of remembering and mourning is really to give ourselves the permission and find time and space for ourselves to mourn the loss that we experience due to this COVID-19. And then the fourth and final characteristic is reconnection. Because this COVID-19 pandemic disconnects us. We need to get reconnected with ourselves, to get reconnected with our friends, loved ones, sustaining that, even if it's only virtual or through social media. And then part of reconnection is finding a survivor mission. Okay, so what is our new commitment now? I think we can start having and finding a survivor mission even if this pandemic is still happening. Okay, so do you bend or break? And again, going back to my earlier questions, what sustains us? What keeps us going? And this is also a paradigm shift. Are there still good things and benefits that come out of this COVID-19 pandemic? Are we still able to see the blessings and the miracles every day, even in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic? Are we still able to express gratitude, even in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic? Not being grateful because of this COVID-19, but being grateful that despite and in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, we still actually continue to receive blessings and miracles from above. This is actually part of post-traumatic growth. I would like to end my presentation with this slide and question. Are we still able to see the silver lining in the midst of this pandemic? If so, what are those? Can we name them one by one? Thank you very much. Ma'am Gina, you need to unmute.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Reverend Alfo Artes, for that very
You're welcome.
informative and enlightening talk. Healing spaces, as I understand it, is a cohesion of the mind, body, and spirit. Many of us are focused on physical health, fixing our body illnesses, but disregard mental health. So with this pandemic, the healthcare system should also ensure that overall wellness is promoted and that includes healing that is psychological, emotional, social, and functional. So now let us listen to our discussants, Dr. Dolores Legilies, Mr. Alan Venus, and Dr. Godofredo Signeres as they give their response on the topic healing spaces. Each of our discussants has 10 minutes to give their response.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, allow me to give my greetings to the very able speaker, Reverend Al, to the sponsoring class headed by Dr. Dodi Signeres. And also I see the graduate school student board, Alan Vinos, the OIC Dean of BAGS, Dr. Herbert Rosana, and the Dean of the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, who is taking a very active stand on this, Attorney Dr. Alex Nepomuceno, and all the faculty members who are with us today. So with the numerous students who are with us, both in this Zoom meeting and in the Facebook Live. First, I'd like to commend the graduate school for choosing a very novel topic. This is one of the hearts of the celebration of the 51st anniversary of the Bicol University. Similarly, I like to commend the speaker for the very scholarly discussion of the topic. And let me just give you a short thought. I cannot finish the 10 minutes because I'm more excited to listen to other point of views. I see the talk centering on healing spaces as a personal issue. It involves cognition that for as long as you don't recognize that the problem do exist, then all our efforts are in vain. I am 61 years old and soon to retire, and I belong to the age group of vulnerability. In the first 3 stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, I was so scared and all nerves, but I realized that there is more to life, that I cannot hide forever in the comfort of my homes. I still have to work and to live. And so I read a lot of literature, and I'm pleased that the literatures and philosophies that I read is in congruence to what our speaker said today. We should allow healing spaces in our lives. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to see beyond the post-pandemic, and we have to believe that there will be a better world after this. And that sustains me. And of course, prayer do. No? Reflection is necessary. It is necessary for us to reflect and transcend all the day-to-day activities that we are encountering, and hopeful that life will be better with the grace of God. I do believe in it. This is not being religion, but one of the questions that was asked is, how do we sustain? And one of the things that work with me is we have to limit us kung ano lang ang kaya nating i-assimilate. The world is in chaos and we cannot sustain all the information. We need to pause. We need only to get information that will nourish our body and nourish our soul. I would like to invite everyone to take a walk, at least inside your home, few meters outside your gate. and pray and say thank you that we are alive and we have work that sustain us. I hope to retire next year, and I am very optimistic. I take care of myself that I can go on and live and see the beauty of the post-pandemic world. We have to sustain and we have to allow healing spaces. And this is cognitive, and we alone can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dolly. May we hear from Sir Venus, Alan Venus?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Thank you. To our officer in charge, Dean of BU Graduate School, Dr. Herbert Rosana. To our distinguished guest speaker, Reverend Al Vertes. To our BU President, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, and to the BU Vice Presidents. To my ever idol, Attorney Nepomuceno, Alex Nepomuceno. To our ever caring mothers of the PhD in Educational Foundations, Program Chair, Dr. Lorna Minya, and Professor Dr. Dali Laguilles. To our former Dean, Dr. Antonio Payonga. To Dr. Dodi Sinires, the Class President of the PhD PASA Program. My fellow graduate students, happy 51st BU founding anniversary, a blessed Sunday, and a pleasant morning to everyone. For the past 3 years, the BU Graduate School Student Council has been looking for the PhD PASA students and wanting to celebrate with them this annual BU Graduate School Day. I never thought that it would require a pandemic just to celebrate with them this momentous day, such as the BU Day, Bugs Day celebration. Nonetheless, in behalf of the Graduate School Student Council, our heartfelt thanks for making us a partner in this endeavor. Truly and without a doubt, this COVID-19 pandemic has greatly affected the society, economically, socially, physically, and emotionally. Looking at the COVID-19 spectrum, I had this fear last March when the lockdown was first implemented. The fear and frustration that I won't be able to finish my dissertation writing on time since my data gathering would require visits to school administrators, educators of technology, and students in a regional scope. This frustration still haunts me as of this moment, though it's slightly subsided because of some comfort zone that I have established. My learning zone started when our agency sent me to online trainings to enhance our curriculum and develop e-learning materials. This opportunity and responsibility enhanced my knowledge and advanced my skills in animation, graphics, and video editing. Now, I was able to develop and implement several learning management systems for technology courses and curriculum development for health sciences. I consider the growth zone as the rise of my healing spaces. It started with the defining of the physical space and decluttering it, and together with my family and friends, promote good vibes and healthy environment. I used the 5S Japanese strategy with emphasis on safety and nurturing the environment. As a result, I was able to set up my mini studio in my workshop where I could deliver various learning activities to its intended beneficiaries. This I now consider as my action zone, my comfort zone, my healing space. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, the PhD PASA program, the BU Graduate School, our resource speaker for giving us the light in going through this COVID-19 spectrum and eventually create not only our healing space, but for others too. I hope that we could partner again and bring this program to the disadvantaged sector of the community and altogether keep us moving. Thank you and happy 51st Foundation anniversary again. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Alan. May we hear from Dr. Sinieres, please?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gina. First of all, thank you everybody for attending this webinar. It's been a pleasure. In some way, this will be our tiny contribution to society in raising the awareness of this problem that we are all experiencing right now. Secondly, we really appreciate Dr. Al Fuertes for your insights and time. I really admire how you put things in perspective, especially in a very wide perspective. Maybe we're more on the same frequency of that. But anyway, let me share to everybody. This is how this quotation guided me when I was on my studies. It's the word of the former Prime Minister of UK, Israeli, when he said, the ability to think is of better value than the ability to memorize facts. I must admit, Reverend Al, I missed a lot of your facts presented, but I did note some of it that I can incorporate in my personal being so that in this particular problem that we have, maybe I could be on the action zone. Okay? Now, I share that because from my perspective, I would like to share to everybody the physical plane of the lecture that we have is not only the healing space that we can afford. It has to start with the mind. The healing space should start from here so that you don't panic. Then you ask yourself, this is what we did. First question, what is this pandemic? That's the first question. So that from that point, once you get the answers on how this pandemic can and may affect people, then probably you can make your own judgments or strategies on how to go on with your life. It's actually depending on you if you want to stay in the panic mode. I prefer to balance the paranoid and the action mode so that I continue to be paranoid on the threat of this virus to society, to myself and my family, of course. But that doesn't stop me from doing what I need, what I can do. So if now taking advantage of this online seminars is a good thing, then it's good. But sometimes doing things outside the point of Reverend Al, maybe doing nothing is good. See? Now it's now people are, I don't know if you realized it, now people are made to realize that in your life, maybe the need is better than the want. So you go first with your need instead of going for the want. I want this, I want this. No, I need this. So you do something because you need it, not because you want it. Basically, the same thing that you, Reverend, mentioned. Successful stories happening here may not be applicable to everybody or to other places. And that's the point. Filipino side is very, very difficult. Okay? We are very difficult. We are all going in the different direction. But maybe we have to attack on that portion there. One example I'll give you. If you put a sign there says, do not touch wet paint. What will the Filipinos do? They will all touch that. Okay, it's wet paint. But you put a sign there, please touch wet paint. I am very sure they will not touch that. So we have to attack this problem in our context, in our situation, based on the Filipino context.
Yeah.
You reverse engineer, you reverse take the Filipinos because Filipinos don't want to be outwitted. I'm telling you. So we do this thing. If other countries are doing this way, maybe we reverse it. So when the government decided to bring the responsibility of safety to the people, suddenly everybody stayed calm. If you notice that. Why? Because now that the sign there, please touch wet paint. But at the beginning, at the onset, everybody was complaining. Everybody was clamoring for ayuda, all those things. Because the sign is, please do not touch wet paint. You restrict the Filipinos, they will cram for escape. But you reverse like that, go out, take care of yourself. Now, in my closing, I would like to share this idea that just cram up with my mind while I was listening to the Reverend. Maybe we could replicate how this virus spread in spreading the word on how to stay safe. So we're like a virus now. I infect you now, then you infect others, something like that. So this thing that we picked up from the Reverend is a good thing, actually. So we spread this one by one as a virus, so that maybe tomorrow, from the 58 present here in this Zoom meeting, maybe that will be double tomorrow or after an hour perhaps. And then probably in a week's time, that will be 2,000, 5,000, and 10,000. We are not the government. Even governments found hard time to contain this problem. This is a global problem. We just need to contribute to 1 cent effort of that. So let's do a virus mode, spreading the news or spreading the things that the good Reverend has shared to us this morning. And probably we can do better. I mean, more safety for more Filipinos. But thinking in mind, Filipino side, we reverse the approach. Tell them, you do that, this will happen to you. So thank you very much, Reverend Al Cortez, for your time and for your insight. We really appreciate all the things that we learned from you. Being the power-pointed president of the PhD PASA class, we're really grateful on behalf of the class. And thank you, of course, to the effort of Dr. Rosana. We turned this, sir, I told you yesterday, sir, nadali mo ako ng ligaw na utos kahapon. Just to be discussed. But I mean, I'm always happy to be of service to the Bicol University. Just tell me what you need from us. We'll help. Thank you very much. Have a good morning, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Senyeres.
Thank you, Dr. Sinieres, as well as Dr. Laguilias and Sir Venus for your responses. As I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, we shall be having an open forum to accommodate questions from our participants. I know our audience are very enthusiastic to ask their questions on this very interesting topic on healing spaces. So the floor is now open for your questions or comments.
Question?
All right. Sir Erwin Martinez would like to ask the question.
Yes, this is the... Good morning. Hello.
Yes, good morning, Colonel.
Good morning. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I just would like to ask, Father, how does religion support human will? Because I understand healing space is all about the mindset to survive. The mindset to survive defines the level of human will we have in ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Colonel. No, for those of us whose faith plays a crucial role in our day-to-day life, then perhaps religion helps a lot, you know. But the reason why I emphasize spirituality instead of religion is because we all know that religion tends to have become a source of tension and conflict, especially if we come from different religious faiths or background or living faiths. And so if religion has become a source of conflict or tension for many, then perhaps spirituality could be that common thread that would bring us together. You know, that's why I shifted to spirituality in terms of how has your spirituality, sustained you. Your question is very subjective, because religion means different things to each one of us. For some, the religion is what provides them with a sense of order. Religion is what provides them with that feeling closeness to God. For some, religion is what enables them to at least follow a certain set of guidelines or dogmas or teachings every day. For some, religion is what entices them, inspires them to go to the community, to serve the people, the community. And so the bottom line here is, I think it's very important for us to really have a clear statement or definition or understanding as to what religion means to you. If ever we want to focus our conversation on religion, we have to define it for ourselves, because
Yes, just a follow-up question, Reverend.
yes, Colonel.
Yes, how come people who doesn't believe in religion, by statistics, have the highest level of human will?
Of Colonel, what was
Hello?
that? Highest level of?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my
Can you
follow-up
repeat, Colonel?
question is, how come people who doesn't believe in religion?
Yeah. I think the best people to answer that are those who don't believe in any type of religion. Religion to me plays a significant role, and I very much equate religion to spirituality. Religion for me is an outward manifestation of my spirituality. Whereas some people believe that, you don't have to be religious to be spiritual, and vice versa. But for me,
Yes,
religion and spirituality come
yes,
together, and in the midst of
Reverend.
this pandemic, it does play a significant role in helping
Yeah.
me to sustain myself.
Yes, Reverend, my question is, can you give us, hello?
Yes.
Can you give us your insight? How come most of the people who doesn't believe in religion has the greatest level of human will?
Of human?
Will. Will.
Human
Human
will.
will.
Having the will to live.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a very good question. Thank you. This semester, I'm teaching a 6-unit course here at George Mason University on spirituality and conflict transformation. Okay. And I've been teaching this course for many years already. And my students represent literally all the living faiths there are in the world. I have students who are agnostics, who are atheists, who are Hindu or Buddhist. Some people, I have a couple students who just don't want to be affiliated with any type of religion. And so they consider themselves to be irreligious. But they do have a very strong resolve in doing the best that they could, for the common good. And sometimes I wonder, so where does that come from?
So Father, would you equate it to a sense of purpose?
Of course, yes. Maybe they have a
Thank
sense
you.
of purpose. Yes. They have a sense of purpose, not perhaps necessarily through religion, but maybe through their love for humanity, through their values, sense of social justice and peace, Whereas for others, their source and what's giving them purpose in life is perhaps their faith in God. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Martinez. We have another question here. This is posted a while ago by Sir Reynaldo Lieva. He asked, does behavior plays a big factor in coping with stress?
Yes, and actually they go, both ways. Sometimes our behavior is influenced and shaped by our stress. In fact, stress manifests in some form of behavioral response, But at the same time, once we have a strong resolve, and going back to the whole issue of being able to continue finding meaning and the purpose of our existence, with our mental, well-being, then eventually, I'm sure that will also translate into deliverables in terms of how we exemplify our lives every day. So these two actually, they reinforce each other. While stress manifests in some behavioral, manifestations, at the same time, our behavior can also um, serve as the basis in terms of how we are doing. Whether we have already embraced this COVID-19 pandemic, whether we have already made peace with this pandemic. And so it also shows on our behavior. So both ways, I would say.
Okay, from Sir Joaquin, here's the question. Pandemic offers us an opportunity to help and lean on others. The pandemic affects people differently. How do we determine the most suitable person or group to lean on
Yeah.
to establish a healing relationship with?
Okay. Thank you. That's a very good question. How do we know which person to go to turn to cry on, to talk to? No. One thing that I would like to highlight in our Philippine context is our collectivist, being a collectivist society, whereby relationships, human relationships, to some extent are given. Community is given, and I hope that we are able to really maximize and utilize it to our advantage, especially during this pandemic. Sometimes you might need to resort to seeing a professional, licensed clinician, for example, a therapist, a psychologist, a counselor, or maybe your religious leader. And I'm sure within the context of the Filipino culture, we can go to anyone whom we feel is there to listen to us. Someone who brings that listening presence, whether that person is professionally trained or not, for as long as he or she is there for you. I know this for a fact. We just want to go to that person and express ourselves to that person. This is something to do with maintaining our support system. Okay, that's why, and I'm glad that question is asked, because it's not enough to say I have my family. Who among members of your family will be there for you, especially in your journey during this COVID-19 pandemic? I have friends, Al. Well, who among your friends will be there for you? Because for all you know, your friends are just friends during good time. But at times when you need them the most, they are actually nowhere to be found, or they are not available for you. So identify who among your friends will be there for you, and who can serve as your ally, who will comprise your support system. This is very important because, like what I have mentioned earlier, healing is a social process. Healing never happens in isolation. Healing, in fact, takes place within relationships. That's why it's very important to have our support system and identify them. And then once you have identified them, I would like you to talk to them and get their commitment to be your ally. That is part of being there for each one of us. Because we are not just talking about normal condition here. We are talking about ourselves getting stressed out, without, feeling like we have been stuck in this inner cycle of fear and what have you. Okay? And so having a support system basically would help. But unfortunately, there are some who don't have any support system. And so in that case, and this is a challenge for all of us, I think we just have to reach out to one another and not wait for people to approach us, because we really don't know what their stories are during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because this pandemic disempowers us. And so for many who are experiencing depression, for example, it's very difficult to make the first move. Sometimes it's easy for us to say, call your friend. How can I call my friend when even to dial the number is very difficult to do? Even to wake up, to get up every morning is hard for someone, especially someone who is experiencing deep depression. It is a fact. Depression during this COVID-19 pandemic disempowers us. It eats us up inside. It consumes our energies. That's why many who are experiencing depression due to COVID-19 pandemic find it extremely difficult to reach out and letting others know how they are feeling. And so in this context, I think it is our responsibility. I would even call it our moral obligation, myself included, to reach out and make sure that, we check on each one of us, even our colleagues, our fellow teachers, fellow graduate students, even our administrators. Because I've been working here with so many administrators in different universities in the United States through webinars, and I learned that many of them don't actually have an outlet by which they could talk about themselves. Whenever they come together, they always talk about their students, the welfare, the safety of their school, their community, but they never talk about themselves in terms of how they are being affected and impacted. And many of our leaders are also kind of concerned to share their vulnerability, concerned of how others might perceive them once they open themselves up and, share and tell others that, they are actually feeling so hopeless and helpless, or maybe just having so many stresses and anxieties. So this is another dimension that I think we need to be mindful of whenever we talk about creating healing spaces, to really be intentional in reaching out to others. Because sometimes our profession, our work, forces us to always project that strong persona, right? That's really true. That is part of our dilemma. We are expected to be the strong presence in our organization, in our department. Little did they know how much we are also actually crying inside. That's why whenever we are feeling all this discomfort on our chest, most likely it is a grief or any type of emotional, accumulated emotions that are just waiting to be let go. And we don't have any outlet at all. And in most cases, this gets displaced and our family becomes the object of, our displaced emotions due to this pandemic. Thank you.
Can I just add something with that? Can I just?
Sure.
It's okay. Well, it was mentioned that it's a supporting mechanism. I would like to add, some people have their own coping mechanism on how they cope. It's not really support that they have friends, but maybe they have on their own personal lives or personal mind, they have their own coping mechanism. Like, I don't know, like in my case, sometimes if I'm very toxic, I play some video games just to clear my mind, That's how I cope. Some people have different levels of coping mechanism. If you have friends, then why not? But some would like to share their inner insight, maybe to friends instead of family. Some to family instead of friends. It depends on the people. It depends on the person, actually. That's all.
That's true.
Reverend.
That's why anything that you can think of that would help you cope, I would say go for it.
Gina, can I say something, please?
Yes, ma'am.
The sociologist in me make me restless, I just want to add, the Filipinos are a relating people. That's why it's very hard for us to do social distancing and the rest. Kaya kailangan talaga we have to reach out. If we want to complete the process of allowing healing spaces, we allow others also to, to get inside our lives, in our social interaction, not necessarily the physical because bawal yon by IATF policy. Kaya po mabintang mabenta ang social media thanks to the many platforms of the social media. We were able to relate, and it's good for the psyche, and it's good for everyone. And it's recommended by psychologists, anthropologists, and sociologists.
True.
Yun lang po.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dolly. We have here another question posted on FB Live from BG Garcia Armende. The question is, how can the society, home and workplace, and people in it help one in restructuring his or her emotion and mental state
Yeah.
when he or she feels unloved and unimportant?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think this is actually part of what I would call paradigm shift, in light of this COVID-19 pandemic, and organizations, academic entities, LGUs, I think really need to rethink the way we do things, the way we implement our programs, and becoming more intentional in having all these stress slash trauma sensitive programs, and also resiliency oriented implementation. We could no longer live in the world prior to pandemic or do the things we used to do before, because we know that many of our colleagues and maybe employees are suffering from this COVID-19 pandemic. How we conduct our meetings, for example, can we start incorporating touching base, as simple as that? How is everybody doing, instead of right away delving into the issues and the agenda, or make it as part of the agenda. How's everybody doing? And really be intentional, in including this as an agenda in any type of meeting, because I think we need to affirm and validate each one of us, of their felt reality, and how we can create an open, affirming, and inclusive spaces where everybody would feel open to sharing their felt reality without fear of being judged. I think this is part of the need, in terms of how we need to rethink the way we do things, the way we conduct business, the way we facilitate even meetings, more so in terms of program implementation. Stress slash trauma sensitivity, at the same time resiliency oriented. I think if we can be more intentional in incorporating these perspective, that for sure would make a tremendous kind of change and transformation and healing as well for every individual member in our organization and program. Thank you.
Okay, we still have so many questions here, but I think I will be accommodating 3 more questions, because I know that our speaker Alfuertes will also need to rest. I understand that it's midnight, and
But I'm still open, actually. I can still go on. So just let me know when to stop. It's a privilege for me. It's a privilege. So
thank you, sir.
thanks.
So we have another question here, also posted on Facebook Live from Ma'am Viola Amano. And her question is, do you agree that healing should start with the acceptance that
Yes.
one needs help before she can reach out for social support?
Thank you so much for that question. Very crucial question when it comes to trauma healing, because healing can never be imposed on someone who does not see and acknowledge the need to heal. And so healing requires a conscious decision. That's why part of that is an acknowledgement of our brokenness, of our fragmentation, of our woundedness brought about by this pandemic. And for some, that is the most difficult part actually in the healing process, you know, to acknowledge, because it comes with vulnerability. But to me, vulnerability is a sign of strength. In fact, Hemingway even said, in many cases and instances, we are actually made strong in broken places. And healing stems from an acknowledgement of our brokenness and the decision to heal. And so it's very difficult to bring about healing for a community, for an organization, for an individual that doesn't even in the first place acknowledge his or her or their woundedness or brokenness. Very, very tough. In my almost 30 years of practice in the field of trauma healing in different contexts, healing is only possible once if there is an acknowledgement of the need for it and a conscious decision to go through the healing process. So yes, and so part of our task here is, how do we entice our friends and even organizations and communities to acknowledge how we are being impacted by this COVID-19 pandemic? Thank you.
Ma'am Maria Leonora would like to say something. So I'm giving you the floor now. Ma'am Maria Leonora.
Thank you, ma'am. This is just in support of what our speaker mentioned about rethinking the way we deliver our programs. And this is an experience as an educator. By the way, I'm a PASA student now, and I could say that I am at the level that I am already adaptive to this new normal. But I'd like to share with you my experience when I was handling college students, that in 2 consecutive years we lost 2 precious souls, and they were sitting at the back of my classrooms. And as an efficient, the way I look at myself as an efficient lecturer, I always start right away every time I enter my classroom. So just to impress the students and just to be like for them to get what they deserve from my class, because I am teaching physics. I start my lectures right away without asking how are you today and all that. And I just felt very upset when I learned that 2 of these students committed suicide without even knowing what their problems, what they were going through. So it was very late. So I became an ambassadress that, for the college administrators to take into these matters, to strengthen our guidance and counseling program, to reach out to these students and to know what they are going through. So from then on, I learned how to respect, how to value this time with the students, knowing their problems, knowing their challenges, and be able to be more compassionate about their situations. And I was also a student. Ako ay scholar ng bayan in the way back 1988 in UPLB. I was sent there. In May, I was already there attending the orientation. I received my allowance several months after the opening. And I hope it is not happening now, because if I didn't have this strength, if I didn't have this faith in God, I would have committed suicide as well. So this is for the MAED students and for the college administrators, university administrators, to strengthen their programs on guidance and counseling.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom Leonora. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because this is also a challenge and an invitation for us teachers. You know, how do we turn our classroom settings, well, now it's virtual, into healing spaces. Because I do believe that when students felt like they are being validated and affirmed of their reality and even struggles during this COVID-19 pandemic, they become more receptive and they become more engaged, and open to the overall learning experience. For many years now, regardless of the class that I teach, for example, even in my human trafficking and smuggling class, my spirituality class, my refugee internal displacement class, I always start each session, even now that we are shifting to virtual classes, I always start every class with a 5 to 10 minute meditation music. I call it personal time. That is the moment when I encourage them to be mindful and bring their presence, consciousness to our learning community. And then followed by how's everybody doing? So I'm okay with that. Even if sometimes, many of my colleagues would say that's a waste of time. You could have already started delving into your lesson plan. And I said, that is part of my lesson plan. It's very important because several of our students here are really going through a lot. In fact, right now I had I think 6 students who were actually infected by COVID-19. And then I had last semester, I had a student who lost 4 members of her immediate family to the virus. Can you imagine that? And I just learned about that when we had this kind of conversation. And then I also require my students to write a reflection essay, one of the major requirements on the impact of the pandemic on them, their family, their studies, their work, and their ways of coping. And then when they submit this essays, I have to make sure that half of the class is spent with them, sharing with each other, learning from each other. It is just a very simple gesture of incorporating, their felt reality. But for students to realize that their teacher is actually intentional in also reaching out to them, even, through these kind of expressions, for many of them, it really matters a lot. And not just for teachers, like what I have said, even for administrators, how we conduct meetings, for example, how can we turn these into some kind of a healing space, physical and symbolical spaces for healing. Thank you so much, Ma'am Leonora, for your comment.
Okay, this is related to Ma'am Maria's comment from Lizelle Sapaula. There are cases of suicides during this pandemic. How can we identify those that are in the verge of suicide?
Yeah. How I wish, I'm sure Bicol University, you have entities as well, no? You have offices, centers that deal with this, like crisis, intervention programs, counseling programs, or Department of Psychology, or psychologists perhaps that who deal with this issue. It is tough when we teachers don't know the sign of students having suicidal tendencies or having suicidal thoughts. That's why, especially in response to this COVID-19 pandemic, if this could be made as part of our faculty orientation every year, whenever we have annual retreat, it doesn't really take much of our time to have conversations like this, or inviting someone, a resource person, to provide us with this. Here at George Mason University, it's a prerequisite. We are required to undergo every year these kinds of training, and I'm sure Bicol University, you have your ways of also incorporating or integrating this into your maybe faculty handbook or manual or part of your orientation. But now I just want us to be really more intentional about this, and if you can also initiate really conversations and mechanisms by which we will be notified or we will be alerted if 1 or 2 of our very own students in our very own classroom, are actually going through this. Because students are very smart in having this facade. How many students we will ask them, how are you doing? I'm okay, sir, mom, I'm okay. But actually, their reality is not okay. So I think if this can be institutionalized in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we will be able to reach out to not just students, perhaps, but even faculty and staff who are going through a lot during this COVID-19 pandemic. We just don't know, because we don't have space by which to learn about which of our students, who among our faculty and staff, or perhaps even administrators are going during these days. Yes, Dr.
Yeah,
Senior.
Doc Gina. Just to add to what the Reverend said,
All
I'd
right.
like to share to you also, because I'm also a regular lecturer in the AFP. This is what I do. I'm like a diesel engine. I start slow with the class. Slowly it builds up. Along the way, along the cold period, I look at the students' eyes for me to gauge if there's something wrong with them. I look them, sir, tama ka sir, there's a facade with some students, yes. But when you look at their eyes, you will see there's certain emotions there that are afflicting them. It may not be showing in the body itself, the persona itself, yes. But you look at the eyes, you can read there's something wrong there. Or we'll see from the eyes. Now, I also went through the time when the teacher has this pat-pat. Pag hindi ka nakinig, piingot ka o may pat-pat. I've been through that kind of learning also. I don't appreciate that, but it made me what I am today. However, being a lecturer and an educator now, I see differently. It could have been better. I would have been better today if we were treatment with humanity. If the teacher or the professor cares more that you learn from me than I care for my salary because I was able to teach. That's different. Because whenever I do a lecture, I make sure from the 10 points, you pick up at least half of that. I'm not going to tell you, you memorize everything. No. Just pick up something, especially those things that you think you need for yourself and apply it. That has been my motto as an educator.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to add one more thing. I'm also very much intentional in requiring my students to write as part of their projects, applied projects, essays, regardless of the nature of the class. Every semester, I learned that I have students who have been trafficked. And they approach me in the middle of the semester and finally shared with me. And then later on, we talk, and then I use them as resource persons if they are willing to start, using their stories as a teaching material to educate others as well. I have several students here who have been refugees at one point, who have experienced, internal displacement, or students who have applied for political asylum because they were persecuted back in their home communities. And I learned this through the essays, the papers that they write, And the moment I notice this, then I will start reaching out to them, and then extending to them a space by which we could have conversations. So that's just part of what I do. Sorry, that's my phone ringing. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Ay. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, that was my brother from Canada. I don't know what he was calling for. Anyways, let us proceed. I just wanted to share, some of the things that I intentionally do, to reach out to my students. And For students who really have a pretty serious problem, I would refer them to the university's counseling program and services, because I also know for a fact that that's not what I am. That's not my main responsibility, to be there for them every time they need someone to talk to outside of the classroom setting. So referrals. Thank you, thank you.
So I think this will be our last question for
Yes.
Reverend Al. There are those who turn into addictive substances for their source of support or coping.
Yeah.
How is that acceptable, sir?
Um, that's something that I don't necessarily condone, but something that I fully understand. For them, that is their coping mechanism, and they think that they are able to find a sense of, maybe just a temporary relief from what they may be going through. But once they are hooked to that, that's a different story. And so the moment we realize that someone is resorting to that behavioral response, and we know what triggers that, then perhaps we have that responsibility to really reach out to that person and not wait until the situation.
Reverend, can I add something?
Yes, please.
Yes, from the point of view of how you train people. Many had said that to establish something before the class. So at the level of the armed forces, there is such thing as motivation check. You check the level of motivation. The purpose is to connect their individual purposes to what the organization stands for. And that specific activity, like what you said, Reverend, is a good example. You play a music. That is the time where they can reconnect. At the unprocessed level, we are concerned with the level of motivation. So it can connect to their mission. So I see a similar version in what you have taught us today, Reverend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually do that whenever I work with military leaders in the Philippines, because I work with the OPAP on the whole issue of DDR, the demobilization, disarmament, and reintegration.
Yes,
And
sir.
part of my task is really to incorporate the trauma healing component into their program, particularly in terms of how to address the trauma and how to possibly bring about healing for those who are returning to the civil society. And I always emphasize to them that we need to understand the psychology of, like, weapons and arms, which for years and years have served as a source of security and safety for those individuals. And then how do we prepare not just these folks, but including their families and the local communities for their eventual return? And part of the whole conversation is really to reach out to the affect aspect of our being, the emotional aspect. Okay, instead of just focusing all our conversations on the cognitive level. Okay, it does make a difference. And I learned that it's something that actually transcends professional boundaries. And before we end, I just have one slide that I would like to highlight to kind of summarize and put things in perspective. But Ma'am Gina, just let me know when we're ready for that.
Yes, sir. You may do so now.
Oh, okay. So I would like to end my presentation after the Q&A, very thoughtful and engaging moment we have had with this. And I came up with this, as I was becoming more into the trauma healing aspect of my practice. That adjusting to our experience we could contextualize this to refer to the COVID-19 pandemic. How can we enable ourselves and our students, our friends, family members, and colleagues, to slowly adjust to our new normal? Number one is really acceptance. Acceptance of our felt reality, acceptance of our new normal. And acceptance is part of the whole process. No? For those of you who have heard of what we call DABDA, DABDA, it starts with denial and then acknowledgement and then bargaining. How many of us have bargained with this, during this COVID-19 pandemic? God, Lord, if only, Lord, can we just do this? Lord, and then experiencing stress and depression until finally we have come to this acceptance of our new normal. And then having a support system is really very important. At least you have someone to talk to, someone to confide, someone to just be who you are without fear of how that person might perceive you after you open yourself up to him or her or them. And then taking care of ourselves is really very important. This is part of self-care. And that different dimensions of healing spaces that I have presented to you earlier, that could be part of the self-care. Okay. And then, of course, constant expressing of how we felt. That is very important, because if we bottle up our emotions due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they will start to eat us up inside. They will start to consume us. And we know human resources, our human strength depletes, and we cannot give what we do not have. That's why it's very important that we have ways to replenish, to get recharged, to get re-inspired, to get re-energized, because this COVID-19 pandemic sucks the energy of us. And we have to have mechanisms by which to also protect and sustain ourselves from this incoming impacts and effects of COVID-19 pandemic in so many aspects of our lives. And then, of course, revisiting our journey during this pandemic. How has it been like for me when this COVID-19 pandemic just started? And then how I have, what was the process involved? And then how I might have evolved in the course of time. What about my family? Okay, so these are just suggestions that might help facilitate our adjusting to this new normal, because I know that many are asking these questions. I don't even know where to begin, how to start, what adjustment looks like during this COVID-19 pandemic. Can we really adjust to the pandemic when it is an ongoing phenomenon? But yes, like what I have said earlier, please know that there are still a lot of things that are within our reach. There are still a lot of things that are within our control. And let's magnify those. Let's highlight those instead of focusing on the things that are not there, at least for now, because it will just defeat us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Al Fuertes, for sharing with us your precious time and expertise on creating healing spaces. I'm sure our participants had a lot of takeaways from this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we come now to the closing program, and Dr. Godofredo Signeres, the PASA president, will give us the closing remark.
Okay, that was a surprise again. Anyway, on behalf of the PhD PASA class for 2020-2021, we really appreciate your time shared to us this Sunday morning. We know that you should be all doing your rest day or probably your domestic way of doing things at home. And I hope you got something from this webinar that we have um, for us to spread the news and spread the information to everybody in your community. Secondly, we really appreciate the insight you, Dr. Fuentes or Reverend Fuentes. We really appreciate your time that you unselfishly shared to us. We hope this will be not the last time. We hope maging suki ka namin sa aming class.
Thank you. I'll be honored.
Actually, we're trying to maximize, sir, what we have right now. Everything outside is dangerous, so learning online is good for us. So we might have other activities similar to this that we might have, or maybe might call on you, maybe reactant probably on this part. We'll have another one, then maybe you can share that. And then we also want to share with you because we would like to share to the BU that our class is also composed of several professionals also that might be able to share something on their own right to this university and to each other. So thank you also. Thank you for that, Reverend. For Dr. Rosana, thank you, sir, for this surprised surprise tasking that you've given me. But it's always been a pleasure. Also for Attorney Alex Nepomuceno, without you, the class will not be like this big, actually. So again, a pleasant morning to everybody. Oh, before I forget, of course, Dr. Gina Ropesa for doing a good job in hosting this. Without you, this could be a chit-chat room, not a webinar. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Anyway, so have a pleasant morning, everybody. I hope you enjoyed and learned something today. Maybe not everything, but at least you picked up something for you to use personally. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sineres.
If I may say something before Dr. Rosana's turn, I just would like to really express my sincerest thanks and gratitude for this opportunity. I'm so privileged to be part of your celebration. Thank you. Thank you.
So, sir, wag ka madadala, baka maulit.
I think the feeling is mutual. The Bicol University Graduate School is also privileged to have you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Al, for accepting our invitation. Actually, we have been wanting to invite you. We have been wanting to invite you long time ago, but I know you are a busy person, and it's difficult to it's difficult to get your schedule. But I'm happy that I finally catch you, and I think I know Professor Al long before in our conferences in the IPRA, International Peace Research Association. Sometimes we are on and off with these conferences, but I think that's where I had known you maybe twice. I met you first in Taiwan, then um, I met you again in Istanbul. That was I think just a couple or 3 years ago. And I hope that we can invite you again. So in behalf of the graduate school and our PASA students, and we appreciate and extend our appreciation to you. So happy Sunday to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And please enjoy your anniversary and celebration.
Okay, let's have a photo session muna tayo. Photo session muna tayo. So may I request all the participants to please show your video so we can see you. So I'll be counting now. Tatlong shots ito kasi tatlong page siya dito sa laptop. 1, 2, 3. Another set. 1, 2, 3. Then another set. 1, 2, 3. So thank you very much, everyone.
May film ba yan? May film ba yan?
Thank you, thank you. Best wishes.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Oh,
Thank you,
Congratulations, BU.
thank you,
till next
classmates,
session. Till
and
next session.
Good job, Mr. President.
thank you, Kuyang Di,
Idol.
to Sir Herbert
Mahulog ako
and
lagi sa silya ko
Attorney
eh.
Nep. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
Kuya Di, meron pa ba sa hapon?
Bana, tumigil ka na.
Kala ko meron pa sa hapon eh.
Itigil
Looking forward. Looking forward sa hapon. After lunch.
Paligayan mo muna si Ateng, ikaw muna maglaba, huwag mo muna masisira yung footage niya.
Hey, please don't forget the evaluation. It's only a few sets of questions.
Okay, sir. So
Yes, sir.
You heard the boss.
Okay po, sir.
Evaluation daw.
And this is also uploaded in the BUFB FB Live. So you can download the video, the entire video, if you want to.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Sunday, si Miss Jan, si bossing ang naglalabas sa labas. I'm sure.
Hinahabol ko yung init ng araw, sir.
Oo nga, sayang Tirik na tirik. Baka umulan na naman mamayang hapon eh. Sayang.
Opo.
Okay, thank you guys.